So the first condition, if you've been watching my videos before, is a condition that is very, very difficult to initially meet. And, we're going to talk about the difference in terms of smell that you will experience when you start to go on a bout of retention, control, celibacy, continence, whatever words you want to use. But that isn't the whole part of that equation. Now, I did a off-the-cuff video on this subject already, but I wanted to make something a little bit more comprehensive because it leads to greater reasoning. So let's talk about the two conditions, pardon me, that we need to meet in order to, let's say, leverage this theory of subconscious female attraction. So the first one is, are we demonstrating, are we showing to the world, are you as a man showing to the world that fundamentally that you're fertile, that if you choose to mate with a woman that you could give her children? This is the biological premise. This is biology rules, right? The initial condition that biological organisms need to meet in order to reproduce is first and foremost, do you have the capacity in order to do that? And most men, through, let's say, certain lifestyle choices, are not demonstrating that whatsoever. So masculine gene expression, first and foremost, is the outcome that we want to achieve. And what are the methods, what are the things, what are the conditions that we need to meet in order to start to move in that direction and demonstrate not only to the world, but particularly to the women we want to bring into our lives that we are fertile, that we can reproduce. Now, in my estimation, the first condition we have to meet is, are we optimizing our testosterone? Okay, are we showing that the biological markers in our body are optimal? We all know that testosterone levels have been dropping precipitously for the last, let's say, century, we could surmise, and that is a multifactorial equation. The second part, as a consequence of optimal testosterone levels, is how it affects our behavior and our temperament. So things like assertiveness is one of the massive contributors to women feeling a sense of attraction to you. You hear it all the time. Oh, I like a man who's confident. I like a man who's assertive. I like a man who's... They may use the words aggression, but that's not typically what they mean. Assertive behavior is characterized for me as an individual who's a risk taker, who is forthright in his identity and his personality and fundamentally what he wants in life. And he's not going to shy away from taking risks, making actions that may be seen as, in other people's eyes as, oh, that's a bit risky, that's a bit brazen, that's a bit bold. But we like being bold, and there's too many timid men out there who are not exhibiting this behavior. And in that way, that doesn't give your female counterpart the confidence that you have the confidence in order to lead the relationship, and not just lead the relationship, but lead the family. That's those markers, and it all boils down to that very simple model of, if I am partnering up with a man, is he going to be able to look after me? Is he going to be able to look after the children? Is he going to be able to combat against any threats? And of course, things have evolved since hunter-gatherer eras. We're not scrounging around on the forest floor looking for food anymore. But these temperaments are going to be very, very favorable in the workplace. If you're going to be too agreeable in the workplace, then you're not going to be able to ask for a pay rise. Typically, agreeableness does not correspond with high income. So assertiveness being a very good trait in that. Lean body mass equally is a demonstration of that assertiveness that has been solidified into your body, right? What your body is going to tell. There's this very trite thing that people say, don't judge a book by its cover, Joseph. It's very, very superficial. I disagree with that. Not completely, but it's indicative of your temperament, your personality, the actions you take every single day is shown on your body. Your body doesn't lie in that respect. Even if you're taking anabolic steroids, which is going to be the rebuttal to this, you still need to go to the gym. You still need to exercise. You still need to work out to maximize your capabilities in that regards of high testosterone levels. So your body is going to be one of the biggest marketers for you displaying high testosterone levels. Okay, if somebody's got a very weak and emaciated physique, it's not indicative of that high testosterone concept. Facial masculinity, equally, we can talk about brow ridge. That's coming from, I believe it is Neanderthal times, this idea that this prominent brow ridge here is also indicative of higher testosterone traits. prominent jaw. All these things are simply markers of higher testosterone levels. We talked about risk taking, we talked about the brow ridge, we talk about facial hair as well, which is going to be another indicator that is demonstrating high testosterone levels to some degree. I believe, and the reason I put stubble here is there is some evidence to say that women actually don't prefer, big beards. Of course, there's going to be nuance and personal preference with this. They don't like clean shaven, but they like somewhere in between, demonstrating that this individual is of a high masculine expression. The scent of androgen. So I prefaced this, and probably the most important part that made you click on this video was this notion that during higher levels, or as a consequence of having higher androgens in the blood, you will get different recipients, different forms of the androgen, and one of them is androstenedione, which is shown in studies to be a pheromone. Now, if we recognize and we can draw the correlation that attractiveness is predicated on a high degree of masculine expression through the hormone and endocrine profile of an individual, we need to look at what is hurting us in this regard. So first and foremost, factors that are inhibiting masculine gene expression are going to be those endocrine disruptors. We talk about plastic, we talk about BPA that has estrogenic effects in the body that desensitizes our androgen receptors, which allow for the permeation of gene expression. Equally, increased body fat is correlated with low testosterone levels, and sedentary behavior might be a system in which adipose tissue is at its highest. Many of you were very upset with me a couple of videos ago on this idea that you shouldn't be seen napping, or you shouldn't nap, right? I'm not against napping. I'm against being seen napping, because in the eyes of your partner, what does that tell her? It tells her that this individual is not high energy, is not high testosterone. So I'm not against napping. I love a siesta. But I'm against being observed in that context, if that makes any kind of sense towards yourself. And the number one topic we talk about very extensively here on Masculine Theory is sexual exhaustion has shown evidence to decrease androgen receptor sensitivity in different parts of the brain. And that is a consequence of some of these very poor lifestyle choices on the left-hand side here. So said twice now, low androgen receptor expression, so you suppress that, low testosterone, low DHT, low pheromone productions. But even if a man corrects this, it's only 50% of the equation, okay? The second part of the equation is even if you as a man are fertile, if you're in heat, I know people, more marketing quip by myself, but it gets your attention because it's a very, very important, or at least interesting subject, I think you would all agree, is even if we are exhibiting that we are fertile, the problem is women aren't demonstrating this. So female fertility is another aspect that we need to, we're not going to have too much control in this respect, but it's being around women who are demonstrating that. And the problem is with the culture, with the narrative, with the rise in the sexual liberation concept through contraception, what is that doing to the body? Now, I'll share with you some personal experience with it, not personally taking any kind of female contraception on my part, but I've been with women, most of the women, bar maybe one or two that I've been with, have all been taking some form of contraception, more specifically the pill, IUDs, the coil, which signal to the body essentially that the body is already pregnant. So what are the ramifications of that? Now, I did a little bit of research here in terms of the consequences of taking some of these forms of birth control for women, and they're horrifying. I'm looking at this list and I'm going, if there's a big narrative out here that men should take a more active part in responsibility of that contraception idea, and males should take some form of contraception other than, let's say, condoms. But with these factors here alone, mood swings, gaining weight, acne, losing hair, nausea, cramping, headaches, back pain, digestive issues, loss of libido, fatigue, insomnia, bloating. As a man, I would never take anything that implies these kind of potential side effects. I would not be doing it. And I've told my partners more. I haven't told I didn't tell all my partners, but when I started to learn more about this, my last partner, who I was with for about 5 years, she was taking the coil, I believe it was, which puts copper into the body, and it destroys the sperm cells when they go into the body. I told her, I wouldn't be taking it if I were you. I wouldn't be taking it, and I was encouraging her to get off the contraception, because that list is only a fraction of the kind of side effects that women can experience when they're taking these things. And then you look at this list and you're going, a lot of these have very heavy negative implications. So what else could it be doing in the body? And one of the factors that it could be influencing is choice in how women naturally attract on a subconscious level, on a level in which they're not conscious about their partners. Now, I highlighted 3 aspects. I'm not going to go through all of these in comprehensive detail, but you can read them here on the screen if you want to, in terms of what these things fundamentally do in the body. So the first one is they change the hormone profile in the body. Birth control, patches, injections, implants contain synthetic forms of estrogen and progesterone, which can mimic the changes that occur during pregnancy. So this concept here, that what's actually happening in a more laymanistic terms, is when you're taking these things, it's communicating to the body that you're already pregnant, and the ramifications of that are coming up. They're coming up. Preventing ovulation. So again, when you're most fertile in your cycle during ovulation, where women are particularly, let's say, looking to mate, and I believe there's correspondence with infidelity, and certainly, let's say, more agreeable to intercourse in this dynamic, is because their biology is telling them, hey, we're ready to get pregnant, we're ready to continue on the species. And other physiological changes within the cervical aspect, the cervical physiology, that makes it very, very difficult for her to get pregnant. So here's my theory. Here's the idea, and again, I'm shying on theory here, but there's a lot of the point of masculine theory in this respect is to look at the scientific data and see where it points to, and for that you can kind of make hypotheses and theories on what other implication it may impose. So here's the idea. If the female body is receiving exogenous chemicals, hormones that signal pregnancy, which create an internal change that means it cannot get pregnant, you could make the statement the body is not in a state of fertility. So they're not signaling that they can reproduce. Not only will the body not be receptive to the impregnation, but any other mechanisms of courtship, including pheromones. So what does that mean? The notion is that if you're taking the pill, then you can't get pregnant twice. That's the concept. And any other biological mechanisms that lead up to that event are going to be impaired, because that's not a possibility. We don't know if somebody's taking, if somebody has the coil, if somebody's taking the pill, that they're no longer going to be receptive to the male pheromones that signal fertility, such as androstenedione and some of the other androgens that are involved here. So the preferences in ovulation are a factor that have some scientific evidence around, and there are 4 studies that I kind of highlighted here that you can go through at your leisure and have a look at if that's something that you're personally interested. All of this I'm covering in my book at the moment, and it would just take far too long to, I'm not going to be able to do it any kind of justice in a short video like this. But there is evidence that during ovulation, during the most fertile part of that cycle, that women have preferences for these characteristics here. And I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination to say that her ability to be receptive to androstenedione and other androgen pheromones is going to be impacted as a consequence of taking something that is already telling the body that it is pregnant and it cannot get pregnant again. So when men talk about, hey, maybe, Joseph, I'm not experiencing the kind of attraction that I want, I thought it would be more prominent. It's not just you being fertile, but it's you being in the environments with women who are equally signaling fertility. And that combination, at least for me, plays out in my anecdotal experience. It's not like you walk out the door after 90 days of leaving yourself alone and women are throwing themselves at you. That's not the case. It's that some women are more receptive to the scent changes, the masculine uptake expression, if they're not taking in anything external that is corrupting that is messing with that. So this is a theory today, gentlemen. I would love to hear your thoughts, and any additions on this would be very, very helpful, not just to myself and my book, but everybody else who has subscribed to the channel. If you like this kind of information, I would implore you to do the same. But we'll speak soon.